Hey, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Boy in a Tree. And today I'm just going to be reading the prologue of my book, Lou and the Perfect Ending. I'm just going to be reading from the prologue. That's the word prologue. I'm going to be just reading through this. And I'm linked down below if you want to see a video where I just generally describe what happens in the prologue. I don't actually read it, I just generally talk about it, what happened. So link down for that, and link also for my drum covers that I do on this channel too, randomly. And I'll just continue to throw that because I like playing my drums. And yeah, so today I'm just going to be reading the prologue. Link also down below to Amazon to find the actual book, Lou and the Perfect Ending. So yeah, alright, let's cut to me reading the book. I opened my eyes to sky that was slowly dying. Gray and black ash fell like snowflakes around me as I lie stretched out on a deserted road, staring up at a laden sky. My head pounded and my arms ached. Taking a deep breath, I tried to pull myself up into a sitting position, but instantly started coughing. The air almost felt like nothing but dust and cinders, sparking in my lungs with every breath. Where am I thought as I looked around. I seemed to be in the middle of an abandoned road. I took another deep breath, a deep and painful breath, and tried to sit up again. This time I was able to force myself into a sitting position, even though my head started swimming. Around me were forsaken and decaying buildings covered in a blanket of debris that continued to fall from the sky. Ahead of me, property seemed to be even more damaged. As I peered down the road, I could see fire-damaged apartments slumping lower to the ground until there was nothing left of them, but a large, barren field of dirty ash for what looked like miles ahead. I had no idea where I was, and as far as I could tell, I was alone in this large, rotting city. I sat for another moment, not even thinking, just staring off into nothingness, watching individual pieces of dust swirling from the sky and onto the ground. My brain felt like it was turned off, numb to any thought, and unable to process my surroundings. As I stared at everything around me, I shook away the numbness. As my brain started waking up, a bizarre thought came to me. Who am I thought, as panic stirred within me again. I was a stranger in my own body. I didn't even know my own name, or how old or even my gender. I knew nothing. My heart started racing, and anxiety took over. How was this possible? Who am I? What am I? How could I forget all of this? I began to shake uncontrollably, almost frozen with fear. As I tried to process this feeling, I was almost paralyzed with fear. I wasn't anyone at this moment. I only knew that I existed, but nothing else came to me. I am nothing. My existence is pointless. I am pointless. Stop! I screamed in my head, trying to stop my inner panic. Relax. Breathe. I took a deep breath and gradually let it out, trying to calm myself. After about 5 minutes of this calculated breathing, I felt better. It's simple. Just find out who you are. Look yourself over. It'll come to you. I knew the answers to my questions were simple. I just had to let myself process things carefully. I took in another deep breath and slowly let it out again. Then I looked at my shaking hands, lifting them up so that they were at eye level. They were a light brown and were slightly cut up and bruised. Perhaps they had been soft, but now were worn down and tough. My fingers seemed skinny but strong. These hands were used to climbing and clawing their way through tight situations. My knuckles were rough enough to not to feel the discomfort. These hands had been through a lot and knew how to fight through pain. I grabbed my hair, which was long and black, but it felt like it hadn't been washed in many weeks. I let it hang down over my chest and checked out what I was wearing. A black ripped-up tank top that once perhaps yellow. However, it was covered in so much grime that now it was practically black. As I stared down at my shirt, I noticed that I had breasts. Okay, girl. I'm a girl. On my chest, just above my breast, was a bloody wound that seemed to be in the shape of a star. It had the 2 points facing up at me, like a star that was slightly turned. When I touched it, I winced in pain, so I decided to leave it alone. Next, I saw that I was wearing torn black jeans and was barefoot, but my light brown bare feet were all bruised and bloody. They were in the same condition as my hands, but they also smelled awful, honestly. Okay, I thought, feeling a bit better. Checking out my body made me feel more familiar with myself, but it was still exhausting to learn about myself this way. I'm a girl, and I seem to be black because my skin was fairly dark. I still didn't know my name or what had happened to me. All I knew was that my body was extremely sore and bruised, but that wasn't enough information. I still didn't know anything about who I was. Panic began to grow within me once again. I brought my shaking hands to my face as I felt the tears beginning to trickle down my dirty cheeks. My brain was straining to remember who I was, but there wasn't anything familiar about this situation. I brought my sore legs up to my chest and hugged them, beginning to cry. This was all hopeless, pointless. I'm half Asian too, I suddenly remembered. The thought just came to me so simply, like recalling where I had left my car keys. And I'm 22. I slightly laughed through the tears at how randomly I was remembering these things, but I still couldn't remember my own name. Japanese, I just remembered. My brain was acting like a computer that was turning on, but as slowly as possible. I wiped away my tears, deciding I had to stop crying and focus. Okay, good. Now, what's my name? The one my parents gave me. My parents. Who are my parents? I had this random feeling of wanting to move, so I strained as I tried to stand up. It was painful, but I was able to stand up. Then I heard an unfamiliar sound behind me. Lou? It sounded like. I turned around to see where the noise was coming from and was shocked to see another person. The noise was a voice, which came from an extremely blonde-haired guy with bright blue eyes, dressed in a black shirt and white jeans. I stood frozen, staring back at where he stood, just a few yards down the road. The sky continued to rain debris around us, as we both took a moment to stare at each other. During this moment, I felt my brain begin to process even faster. At first, my thoughts had been like a faucet with a handle that wasn't turned completely on, just dripping out slowly. Now, it was like someone had turned the faucet on full force, and my thoughts were pouring out so fast that it was quickly flooding the sink. He called me Lou. I knew him, and he knew me, but I thought Lou was just a nickname. Lucy, I said out loud when it finally came to me, surprised by my own voice now. I coughed, getting rid of some of the dust I had breathed. My name! And he nodded and smiled. Yeah, you're Lucy, and I'm Alan, the guy said. A terrible memory made its way into my head when he said his name. I remembered burnt skin, but I quickly pushed that thought away in shock. No, I said, shaking my head, and then turned around, quickly walking away from him, making my way down the road towards that large gray and black field. I wanted to run, but my sore feet only allowed me to stumble forward. Why would I not be wearing shoes? I thought as I forced myself to move. Lou, please wait, listen to me, Alan called as he chased after me. I walked as fast as I could to get away from him. The crumbled buildings on both sides of me slumped lower as I got closer to the barren field. You have to— No! I said, cutting him off and forcing my bloody feet to stagger forward, the field only yards away. Walking at this pace hurt my feet, but the numbness allowed me to keep going, and pushed past the pain. You're not here, Alan, I yelled. I am here, Lou. How am I talking to you? He yelled as he trailed after me. Now I was in the field, where the ground seemed to go on for miles around me. A strong breeze blew by, whipping the ash and dust into the air. I glanced up and thought I could see through all the dust in the air for a moment. Bits of blue and red poked through the gray ash clouds that covered the sky. But I quickly looked down and focused on walking. There was no time for getting distracted, but I could hear Alan speeding up behind me. How am I here, Lucy? Alan called out from behind me as he followed. Memories continued to flow back into my head. Horrible memories that I tried to push away quickly. My brain seemed to be finally processing my memories much faster. The faucet was completely turned on now, so the whole house was flooding. I began to remember who I was and what had happened to me. I remembered my mother, Mary. I stumbled as I walked, stubbing my toe on a small rock that was hidden in the dust. I yelped, but I stumbled on, trying to fight through the pain, and kept walking. I knew Alan was not far behind me. I had to keep moving. My little sister, Chloe. I stepped on tiny pieces of glass, screaming and falling onto my hands and knees. I quickly jumped back up on my feet as fast as I could. They were bleeding even more now, but because they were so numb, I was able to keep moving. My father, Ren. Oh no. My father. What he went through for me. It was all coming back to me too quickly. I instantly wished all these memories would have stayed away. I remembered who I was. What I was. I remembered my friend, Tyler. I looked down at the bloody gash in the shape of a star on my chest. It wasn't just a star, though, but an inverted pentagram. I began to cry again as I walked. You're in my head! You're made up! I yelled towards Alan as I walked as quickly as my numb and bleeding feet would let me. Up ahead, the ground seemed to just fall away, which I couldn't see from a distance because it was almost perfectly level with the dust. As I walked towards it, I could see this much easier. Lucy, that's ridiculous. I'm a figment of your imagination? Yes, you're not here. You and Tyler are both gone, I said, practically sobbing as I remembered everything. Everyone. Gone. I felt for the blue rocks on my chest out of instinct, but only felt the wound that was left after they were removed. How could they be gone? That memory still eluded me. Lucy, that isn't true, Alan yelled as I walked up to the path that fell away, my breath catching in my throat. It was a large chasm, and the other side was probably about a half a mile away. As I looked to my right and to my left, it seemed to go on for miles. I could see no way around it. I tried to guess how deep it was, but I couldn't see anything other than darkness at the bottom. I looked back up at the opposite side and saw a large hill a couple of miles away. And on the hill was a large tree. I felt like I knew that tree. Lou, Alan called from behind me. I turned around to face him as he was still walking towards me. Stop! I yelled, backing up, my feet meeting the edge of the chasm. He quickly paused, only a couple of yards away from me. Lucy. No, he said as he looked at the large fall behind me. Listen to me. I'm here, Lou. I promise. I slowly shook my head back and forth. No, you're not. You died, Alan, I said, looking at what I had walked away from, which was now behind Alan. It was a city that had fallen apart, a city that had died. I shook my head and slowly stepped back. A breeze blew by, stirring up the black and gray ash into the air around us. So many have died. I can't do all of this anymore. You're not real anymore. You're not completely wrong, Lou, he said. But there's more to this. And I need your help. So just wait a second and listen. He began running towards me. I stepped back and fell. The last thing I saw was Alan staring down at me as I fell into the chasm. Everything gradually became dark. Alright, well, thank you for watching this video all the way through. I think I only made little tiny mistakes here and there while reading that, very tiny though, so I'm proud of it. I appreciate it if you go and check out my actual book, my fictional book, Lou and the Perfect Ending. The link will be in the description. Find it on Amazon. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Stay connected.